What is happening, everybody? Welcome to the Somebody Like You podcast. And today I am super stoked to have an 18-year veteran in the mental health space, Dr. Irina Campbell. I'm so grateful for you taking the time, hanging out, and the little conversation we had before we even jumped on here. Like, I can already tell this is going to be a really fun conversation. And I want to give you a minute here just to introduce yourself, tell people what you do, what you're about, and we'll get this thing started.
Oh, thank you. That was amazing. And the chat with you prior to we started was so fun. But the question about tell me, please, what you doing always make me a bit conscious because I really don't know how to describe myself and put everything that I do in one kind of coherent story because that's my story and my journey to what I am right now. That's like 18 years. So I need to cover what I was doing all these 18 years and all the bits and pieces. So what I'm doing right now. So I started 18 years ago. I started even earlier. I started earlier when I finished my medical degree and I started as a psychiatrist and did a residency in psychiatry. And I worked as a psychiatrist for 7 years. And then I was lured into the realm of forensic psychiatry. So I swam a bit of there and I loved it. But like when any journey, you understand like there's nothing else there to discover and you get bored. And this is where I felt like I need to challenge myself. I need to really kind of see what is out there because I kind of swam here and there. I know my ocean, my sea. I want to swim somewhere else, like maybe with more rough terrains, like challenge my muscle, my mental muscle. So what I've done, I thought that it would be super fun to move somewhere with different language and completely different profession. So I moved the country that I knew a little bit how to speak English, but not in a level that I could do like smart conversation, not at all. But what did I do? I enrolled myself to do PhD in a language that I didn't know of much. So I got a position because I had all these ideas in mind. So I got myself in position as a PhD student at Edinburgh University in Scotland and did degree in a language that I'm not fluent. I wasn't fluent at all, like challenge accepted. So I did a PhD in neuroscience and that was a journey in itself because PhD is like a baby, it's like you're thinking about one thing for 5 years. In my case, it was 5 years. And it was in itself is just good and incredibly challenging in itself. And also convey my thoughts in a different language was a challenge. But I thought that I'll do that. It's incredibly fascinating. I want to offer a little bit different perspective on the same theory that floating out there, but because of my clinical background, I thought that I'll bring something new. But when I finished, I started to work as a research assistant and then research associate, and then COVID hit, and I lost all my funding. I lost my position. I lost everything, like everything that I was working so hard. I lost everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, what shall I do now? Because I can't go back to research because there was no access to participants. There was no access to anything. Nobody would fund any project. So I decided to kind of brush off my psychiatric education. And we did have education in psychoanalysis and a little bit of clinical hypnosis. So I started to just help people around to go through COVID and just speak to people for free, just voluntary work, just to not to be bored and everything. And then I decided to completely redo my training in clinical hypnosis and integrative psychotherapy and helping people already with like I was in the past as a psychiatrist, but already with this bag of knowledge as a psychiatrist, maybe a little bit forensic because you have to have this investigation role when you work with people. what are they saying but not saying? You know,
Oh, it's a
what is the
motivational interviewing, right? Like you have to
yeah,
get
it's
in
like
there.
that. Yeah,
Yep.
it's like this. So a little bit of that, and my neuroscience background also helps because I think psychoeducation is such a great way to go through from, I feel in all this emotion was like, oh, that's why I'm like this. Like a little bit of thinking, a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of, oh wow, this is why I'm like this. So I think the psychoeducation, when you allowed, because not everybody likes listening to the lecture for 50 minutes. But I think it's like big role, to just help you to understand that it normalize lots of things
Mm.
that we're going through.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is what I do.
That's incredible. So you said you enrolled in a PhD program without knowing the language. So did you have to take like English classes while you were doing this, or were you learning English completely on the side?
So when I decided that there is nothing there for me in forensics and or psychiatry, I already decided it's not going to be in my country, and I already knew a little bit of English, and it was easy for me to start that. The other option was for me to go to learn French and to go to France, because I don't know, I felt like it's incredibly kind of uh, romantic place to go, but I thought that it will be easy to learn English because I have a little bit of like basics in it. So I applied everywhere where there's an English speaking people. And whilst I was waiting for their reply, I applied somewhere like in April. I was involved in August. So from April to August, I dived into everything. What I could put my hands and all my body into. Like I work with native English speakers. I went to Oxford, spent a month or two there. So I was non-stop listening, speaking, reading. It was like a mega goal. I need to get a position. I need to move somewhere and do something different. That was their like goal. 4 months of non-stop complete dive into this English culture or English language.
And it's so funny because I can hear a little bit of a Scottish accent in your English, which is so
What?
funny
You
not being from there, learning English in another country and then picking up
realize.
a little bit of that accent. That's one, it's so impressive that you just decided to pick up. You're like, you know what? I'm ready for another challenge. I'm not just going to go through a PhD program. I'm also going to do it in a language that I barely know at all. That is
Yeah.
incredible. If anybody's like listening or going to be listening and you're looking to like look for that motivation to do things, I think you have such a cool perspective of it's not so much of a challenge as much as it is as an adventure. Like you were looking to like
Mhm.
go on your next adventure, it sounds like.
Yeah, adventure. And I think this is what, playfulness and adventure. This is, I think, not because I did like there's lots of things that I also left out from the story. It's not even the whole story. It That the story is how I become who I am right now. But the
Mhm.
background story is even more heartbreaking because when I'm talking about how can I challenge myself, how can I remove myself from what I'm doing, I also was going through a terrible, terrible divorce back then. And when I decided to move from one country to another, this is how I try to move myself out from traumatic experience. My husband left me, and I was pregnant with the last month of pregnancy, and he left me. And I was like completely alone. I didn't know what to do. I felt so desperate. I was so depressed. And when my baby boy was born, I was alone. There was I was like this. Maybe some of the listeners will relate. I hope not. But when you're with this little bundle and you're alone, you feel like you're the only one person that can protect. And my mom was trying to connect to me, and I wouldn't. I just locked myself in. I thought that I'm just gonna like almost like die together with him, and
Hmm.
wouldn't let anyone in. But then I was like, what am I doing? What I'm doing with my life. My life just started. I was 27, and I was like, no, absolutely not. And that I remember I was lying down with him, and I was like, no, that's definitely not the life I want. But
Hmm.
I definitely know I can't be here. So what can I do? And I actually moved to another country as a single mom with a baby who was 9 months old to do PhD in a country I didn't know anyone. There was no connection, there were no friends, there was nobody around me. So I moved, I found him a nursery, I enrolled myself to PhD, and I was nursing him and taking him places, trying to learn English with moms of other kids who he was playing with, trying to like desperately make connection, and actually it didn't work. I couldn't connect because I was still in that trauma survival, because I was like,
Survival.
can I trust them? Can I trust them? What if they betray me? What if I'm going to be hurt again? So I actually wanted to connect, and I didn't want to connect. And
Uh-huh.
this is what trauma does. It's like I desperately lonely, but no, no,
That's
I don't want that connection.
That is so, and I think what you're like, one, how brave and how courageous you are to go through all, like you said, that's just a part of your story. And then you start peeling back the layers and you start seeing like you're going through some traumatic things there. And then the level of strength, courage, bravery to continue to work through that. One, thank you for sharing that because that like gave me chills as I was listening. And two, I think what you were talking about is such a good overview of trauma itself is you want help, but when help comes, you lock yourself away and we all think
Yeah,
we're going to do this ourselves. We don't want to let people in. And what
yeah,
you did, like you said, you were looking for the connection, but when a connection started to be built, that trauma
mhm,
starts to surface back. And that feeling of being left, the last person you loved, trusted, and created life with
mhm,
left. So now it's
yeah,
almost like that trauma's coming up and the ego is coming in and saying, "Hey, hey, hey, you don't want this. You don't want this connection
yeah.
because of what happened." So what were your next steps? How did you start to let people in? How did you start to build those connections?
It was so hard because I didn't recognize that back then that I need to do something, because my focus was to remove myself from the traumatic situation. That goal was achieved. But now the next goal is to dedicate my life to give my child the best. I was thinking I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be dad. I'm not looking for anything. He has everything in me. And I don't know if that played in his development, because I almost didn't let anyone help me. And how he perceived me, that I'm completely alone, this strong woman next to me, and that is the only person that I can trust. Because I'm not sure if subconsciously I was teaching them, can you really trust people around you? So we had big talks when he was growing up about trust and how much you can let people in. And I think right now, because I started to discover myself more through working on myself, through and the why I do clinical hypnosis and integrational and integrative psychotherapy is because only that way I could understand myself better, through subconscious, through working with the body, through talking about what I'm going through. It's not one directional, you just talk about. No, it's absolutely not, because my body was in such a survival. I was constantly tense. I was constantly anxious. I was constantly fearful. And there are people who help me work a lot with my body. And clinical hypnosis was the final kind of straw that I was like, okay, I know exactly what to do. And through this deeper inner work, I understood that I need to have conversation with my son, because he saw only me for 8 years. I didn't let anybody in my life for 8 years. I was completely alone.
Mhm.
And I mean, I completely alone. I barely had any friends because, like, what? No, because friends will start questioning, pitying, inquiring, trying to help. Well, like, I don't need that distraction in my life. And I think I work with trauma a lot right now, and I see how hard it is to a connection at the beginning with my clients, and how much I need to earn that trust. You can absolutely rely on me, and I know how much I can push or step forward, so they're not retrieve. And I was like, no, 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 that's too much, and allow the space. And I knew that friends wouldn't do that. Friends wouldn't understand that I need space for
That
healing.
and I think that's really important to know, especially as a coach. I love to hear that is because a majority of what I feel like we do is we're holding space for people and building trusting relationships as trusted resources. So I always tell people like I'm not going to solve your problems and get through this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lend my hand out. I'm going to help you learn how to help you. Because, like what you were talking about, you weren't letting people in. So, what started to happen is your mind starts playing a lot of tricks. It starts creating a lot of narratives. And then I'm so happy you brought up clinical hypnotherapy because I went through hypnosis, not myself, some, but like a trusted resource of mine did clinical hypnotherapy with me. And it was like for the first time I got to sit inside my subconscious and see how it creates and what my thoughts, how they become my reality, how they become the full picture of what I think, do, act, and say. And I'm so curious how your work with yourself and how you started impacting your healing has now transpired into how you help other people. Do you see yourself in the clients you help?
I see myself in every single client I help.
Yeah.
I see their relationship. I see their relationship with themselves. I see them, how they try and go loopy loops and trying to finish that gestalt that wasn't resolved in the past. And they are they finding the same stories to complete this gestalt. And what the clinical hypnosis does, it's enabling to complete that gestalt, because we don't know what gestalt is. We don't know what we're there to look to complete. Why we end up with the same abusive relationship? We
Mhm.
just want to complete that. We didn't do something that was not completed back then, and we're repeating that in order to kind of find that, like, golden nugget, you know. But we don't know
Mhm.
what it is. And I think clinical hypnotherapy shows what you haven't done before. You do that, because for brain it doesn't really matter if it happens in a real life or it's just in our mind. It doesn't matter. So
Mhm.
what clinical hypnosis does is you put in yourself again into that situation. You find what you want to desperately do or say, or I don't know, like, give yourself resources to do and complete the
Mhm.
cycle. And then it's a ripple effect. It's absolute ripple. People coming out of hypnosis is like, and it's a completely different person. There is smile, there is ease in their body, there is clarity. They completed that story. They kind of, oh,
Uh-huh.
finally. It's like an itch that you
Yeah.
couldn't reach to itch, and now you itch, and you find something or someone to scratch it. It's like, oh my god, that's the best feeling in the world.
Yep.
That is what hypnosis does.
And I love that you said that when the mind thinks it, your body feels it. So it doesn't matter if it's really happening outside of your body at all. Your body and your eyes, your feeling, your mind is all creating that story as if it's real. And
Mhm,
everything's energy, frequency, and vibrations, right? So
mhm,
if we're matching that frequency, our mind thinks and attracts to the things that we keep thinking and feeling. It just keeps, like you talk about, that
mhm,
loop. And so important, like when you're talking about through that hypnotherapy experience, when you're able to put yourself in, like for my instance, it was like my inner child, my younger self that went through some
mhm,
trauma, right?
mhm,
And all of a sudden I'm sitting there as grown up me, being the person who that kid needed. He didn't need to tell him anything.
Mhm,
He just needed to be there. And then
mhm,
almost just by being there, he started to get like that. The kid in me started to feel like that comfort, that resolution, that feeling that everything's okay. And then once I
mhm,
came out of everything, knowing that my inner child, like little, I'll call him little Ben, felt resolution, felt that everything was going to be safe, okay, and got that, like, finished that loop. I was able to start moving on. Like, I wasn't in this pattern anymore of trying to
mhm,
make up for things I did or didn't do back then, attention I did or didn't get from certain people and certain friend groups. Like, it was all these different things. And I'm so happy you brought that because I started changing the narrative in my mind. Like, I'm healthy,
mhm,
I'm healed, I'm my best self now, or I'm in connection with my best self. There's no longer this thing interrupting my radio
mhm,
signal. I feel like now I'm in service to my purpose. And it
mhm.
was a huge part of that was hypnotherapy.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I like to use clinical hypnosis, not just to go back in time, but I absolutely love working with parts. Like IFS, for example, internal family system. I love to do that. Or look at the situation from their objective perspective. And I
Hmm.
like their allegory or metaphor about a sport game. And when we're in a game, it's like we're with a ball. We know, like, oh, that we can locate another partner on a game. I don't know. I'm not really a sporty person with sport allegory, but I think you can actually realize that I can see this and I can see that, like on a line, right? You don't have different angles we have on a TV from the bird eye side, bird view, from the different angles. We don't have that, but hypnotherapy gives you that perspective from the bird view, from different observation from different things,
Mhm.
and there's not that much emotions involved, because you're observing it, you're looking at the picture, and this is where you can understand and you can take emotions away and have a resolution, best resolution. Why did you do that behavior in the first place? This is what I've done that. Now I know why I'm doing that over and over again. And this new understanding, even when you're not doing any really therapy work, just understanding, it's already kind of, here we go. Now I understand.
That sports analogy really connected with me because I played multiple sports growing up, but basketball was kind of my
Mhm,
thing, right? And it was this understanding of what was going on around you, even when you didn't see these things. So it was like knowing where certain people were going to be, what they were going to be doing, what my role in it was. And it became, instead of like one person doing a thing, it became, I don't know how to even put this. It was all We were all one body doing a
mhm,
variety of things, and it was like this giant connection. So when you
mhm,
say that, like that, like almost like opened up my mind to like that's life. Like there's so many things happening around me, but they're not separate from me. They're not happening to
mhm.
me. They're happening with me.
With
So like
mhm,
so as I'm moving, they move too. And now if I go this way, like it causes things to shift a little bit. If I
mhm,
make this
mhm.
decision, certain things shift. And that was like I'm getting chills as I'm talking about it because I feel like it's like a puzzle piece fitting into
That's
place.
great, isn't it? Yeah.
That's really powerful.
I love that. I love that. You took the idea and you said it in your own way, but that absolutely makes sense, isn't it? It's just, yeah, it's a great big organism of things happening with you,
Organism.
and you can
Yeah.
affect that in a way. Will you pass that ball or not? That affect how the game will go, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, it's an organism because you think of our bodies, they're all made up of individual
Mhm,
particles, organisms, like the biology of our body, and they all have their own consciousness. So they're all making
mhm,
its own decisions that make up us in this verse. So like to think
mhm,
about that is like everything is just an organism making the choices that have then effects of whether it be reality, life, or whatever we want, however, whatever we're going through. That's really, really powerful. I love the way like you can see my gears turning because I'm like, oh my gosh, that connects. Like I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So when you were going through and like after those 8 years, you said you had some pretty powerful conversations with your son. As he's grown up, do you see that that your impact and the progress you went through has kind of trickled down to him? I know he's probably going through his own set of things as he grows up, but do you see like your strength and mindset coming through in him as well?
I think so. He's great empath, and he has such great set of human beings around him that he built himself. And this power of connection, power of vulnerability, power that I wasn't that authoritarian figure for him, but we could talk about everything, and I was very vulnerable. And we were talking about what I was going through by being a single mom, and he saw that it's okay to be vulnerable, and he saw the power of me coming to him and sharing. It's not like, button up, sweep under the rug, not talking about that. Don't ask about your dad. It's like, no, that's taboo. We never go there. No, I was incredibly open, and I was trying to make it like it's because that is the problem with children trauma, right? Because they understand words, world through us, right? If we are distant, they think, oh, I need to be distant. They learn from us, they self-regulate from us. And why traumatic experience happens sometimes when trauma isn't happening. There is no abuse, there is no neglect, there is no emotional abuse or physical abuse, but we're still talking about trauma because kids never learn right side of the brain experience, vulnerability, sharing your emotions, emotional connection. We never teach kids that. We uh, feed them, we put clothes on them, we're taking them places. Well, sometimes some parents do give hugs and everything, but we didn't never know how much we can go and share our own experience with kids, how we can traumatize. But surprisingly, this is the most amazing experience and powerful experience we can give them, the power of sharing what is happening. Because back then when my mom and dad was grown, nobody was sharing. Like everything was like under the closed doors, like you were not allowed to know that your parents are struggling. And I said that I'm going to go through absolutely different route. I'm going to share. And right now I see that he can tell me anything, and he is open to counseling sometimes and say like, mom, I'm going through something that I can't share with you right now because I don't know what to share. I don't know what I'm going through, but I'm happy to speak to the counselor. He has two favorite counselors that he's going from time to time just to talk things through, and I'm really happy. I absolutely granted. I maybe even don't know want to know like full story that he's maybe sharing more openly with our counselor, because he is a teenager right now. He's going through puberty and changes and hormones. He probably
Mhm.
not very happy to share with me, but he wants to share with someone who is you know professional.
Yeah. Mhm.
He's deemed professional, so I'm really really happy, so he's not bottling up.
That and you gave him such I mean, he obviously has to be the person to welcome that gift in, but you gave him such a gift through all of your journeys and your stories and your trauma. You really were able to give him such a gift of, like you said, access to that right side of the brain, the emotional
Mhm,
side, the creative side. And in today's world, one of the hardest things to do is feel comfortable asking for help.
mhm,
And something in your house that was never questioned was it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk
mhm,
about things that are hard to talk about, even from if I'm your mother. Like you please talk to me because I'm
mhm,
talking to you about the things that are hard for me. And so instead of like this mother son connection, it was like this teamwork. It was
mhm,
you're both going through this together, where you were able to finally take off that cape a little bit, where you obviously, when he's so young, you have to be, like you said, you were just locking yourself down. You said, you're going to survive because I'm going to force this to happen. But and I say this just from, I'm just so proud of you and what you were able to help, that positive ripple of giving
Mhm.
a child, a kid, someone in their youth, the power and confidence to ask for help, because that is one of the greatest superpowers somebody can have, is knowing when they're kind of out of alignment and they're not feeling in connection with themselves,
Mhm.
and they go, I need a little bit of help right now. Because if that goes on for years, like for all, like people who have experienced that trauma, it creates your reality. And all of a sudden you start building these buildings and these blocks and all of these things around your
Mhm.
trauma to stop the growth and the spread of it. And what you're really doing is you're building a box for yourself in which only a certain life can exist. And I don't know, I'm just like, I'm getting chills as I continue to talk about it. It's just so cool that you gave so much love, kindness, and a path to this child through such traumatic experience of yourself. It's kind of like, I don't want to speak as towards your trauma, but like, it's such a healthy, almost resolution to your trauma of taking what you went through and seeing the literal progress of your
Mhm.
son based off what you went through, and how you were able to turn that into a positive for your son and yourself, because now you're in the
Mhm.
mental health space helping people through it. So I just wanted to take that moment to say, like, pardon my French, but holy shit. Like, that was incredible. Like, what you did is incredibly empowering, inspiring. And like, I know, looking at it, like from my perspective, I'm like, I have a different appreciation. I have a different
Mhm.
understanding of like what strength looks like. So I'm so thankful you shared that part of your story with me. Thank you.
That's great, yeah. Because I speak sometimes to people who grew up in a very authoritarian families. Again, no trauma. We're not talking trauma in a big sense at all. But so authoritarian, you couldn't really decide anything. You just do what you're told. And kids are supposed to be seen but not heard. You know, and this is where connection to yourself, your authenticity is broken. And I was working with a beautiful, beautiful human being, and they so untouched with themselves. They always need, through asking question from others, validation that they are in the correct way. They are doing the right things. They are choosing the right profession. They're choosing the right words. This is where people pleasing is, because I have no idea how I feel. I have no idea what I like anymore, because uh, parents, not that they were really bad parents. No, they absolutely did the best what they thought that they were given. The guiding, not making like I'm gonna tell you because I passed all the mistakes, so you are gonna avoid mistake. But the thing is that let them make mistakes, let them understand what they like, what they dislike. Do they like strawberry ice cream or chocolate ice cream? Or maybe I discovered I like Sig buckthorn ice cream. I would never ever try Sig buckthorn ice cream in my life, but I love that because everybody said like that disgusting. Nobody even touched Sig buckthorn ice cream, and I was like, I'm gonna give it a go because nobody is touching that. That's really curious. Why nobody? I will just, well, it's just cost £2, like why not? And I love it. And nobody know. Like how nobody know about sea buckthorn ice cream yet. You just have to go in and
I
explore.
have no idea
So
what that is.
you have to Google that. That's the best thing in the world. You have to try that. That's the best ice cream in the world. But how would you know if it's a good or bad? If your parent says like, oh, that's just, I tried that, that's disgusting. So they would never try it. That's it. My dad said it's disgusting. I will never even know what sea buckthorn is. That is my point. Make mistakes, be comfortable making mistakes. I was listening to this amazing book, um, psycho, uh, psychocybernetic. Do I pronounce that right? I will. I can put it on podcast If you have a podcast details, this book is amazing. And what it says that people are like rockets, you know, rocket launching is never about make a correct one. It's always about make mistake, adjust the how you guide yourself. And this is the essence of our life. More mistakes we make in either way, correcter, more correct way you're gonna go.
Mhm.
Because oh, I don't like that. Oh, that makes me cringe. Oh, I love that. So that this is how you know. This is why how you choose the correct course for your lounge.
Mm. I love that because you said something really powerful, and it was like you said, people growing up in authoritarian households being told what to do, and what they're taught to do is just follow directions, and they get rewarded for
Mhm.
following directions and moving in a specific direction. Where
Yeah,
I think not only like go out and make mistakes, but understanding like it's okay to make mistakes. Like
be
everyone does
comfortable.
it. Ever like,
Yeah.
and so like it's almost like you kind of want to go out and be like, I might go around and just mess up today. Let's see what happens.
Hmm.
Because, like you said, there's so
Hmm.
much joy in finding that flavor of ice
Hmm.
cream. Like, there's so much joy in doing all of these different things just in a different way than you're used to. Because maybe you messed around and you're like, I'm just going to go, like, I don't know, hit that piano, play that piano in the middle of a mall, and I don't know how to play piano. And all like everyone else would be like, don't do that. You don't know how to do it. And all of a sudden you go, I love the piano. I might not know what to do, but like there just was something about sitting behind that piano that felt so good. Like you said, what other people think as mistakes may be like your life purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And actually, one of the with one of my clients right now, I actually telling her go and make mistakes. Go to the cafe or restaurant or something and order something that you always thought you will hate as a taste, as a texture. You never order that. Order that and see if you like that. Because she actually did grew up in a very authoritarian style, very kind of German Russian family, and
Mhm.
like we know the best, like you know nothing because you're just a child, and she did go out, and she is incredibly uncomfortable making mistakes because mistakes are punished. You make mistakes, you're a bad girl. You make mistakes, or you never amount to anything, And she was terrified making mistakes. So she would check and recheck on almost OCD manner if she's done. And she is in a role of manager, and she's can't even she's past her deadline, and she can't release wherever they are releasing because she's checking and rechecking. She doesn't sleep all night. She needs to make sure 180% that she's
Mhm.
correct, because there's no way I can make a mistake. I will be so punished. And it's not that she's going to be punished, but her body remembers the feeling from the past, how, like, she never been physically abused by making a mistake, but the sheer glance of her dad make
Mhm.
her body shivers. I will never ever make mistake again because I'm afraid of that glance of my dad, of disapproval. Like, what? You're not supposed to. Like, what is B? Like, no, you should be A plus. Absolutely not. So I make her right now consciously make mistakes and be comfortable making mistakes. Go out there and go to the pub. Start like if well, she can she can go to the pub and drink it. You're not gonna do that with everyone, but go to the pub and see how's that feel to you know order something that you definitely gonna dislike, or you thought that you're gonna dislike. Go and speak to the stranger. Go and make mistakes, and do the job not to 180% but 150%. You know, be
Yeah, that's
comfortable with your
huge.
body. Mhm.
That's huge because I always say there's gotta be a level, like, pardon my French, there's gotta be a level of "fuck it." You know what I mean? There's gotta be
Yeah.
a level of, like,
Yeah.
that's the best way, like, I can say that to my clients is because I've definitely
Mhm.
worked with people like that where they're like, whether because for me, my personal thing was more of, like, growing up being bullied, right? And all of a sudden you're scared to say certain things, do certain things, act a
Mhm.
certain way, because when you're that age and you get like brutally made fun of, or
Mhm.
maybe like bullied, physically getting in fights or whatever it may be, you never want to do those things again. You never want to act where I look back now and I'm like, I was just a kid dancing, having fun, being goofy, saying things.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, like you look at how you didn't act that way anymore. So that like
Mhm.
when I hear people like going through like being perfectionists or making sure everything, because they're scared of either messing up for disapproval of a parent or physical abuse, anything like that. When you become the adult, I always say you have to have a little bit of fuck it in your system, because
I
if you
like it. I
don't,
love it. Yeah,
because if you
I
don't,
love
like
it.
I've had to say that to myself, because I was over analyzing everything, like we talked about. Is it like my purpose? Well, am I doing it right? Am I enrolled in the right classes? Am I speaking to the right people? Am I making the right content? Am I posting the same amount of times? And all of a sudden you're like, fuck it. I'm not going to do everything perfect. Why don't, because in that mantra, in that mentality, you're going to find the way you do it, the way, like, because you're not going to fall. I always say this is one of my favorite things, is what we're doing is we're laying bricks and we're just building up the bricks this way. So when you fall, you're not falling back down to the ground anymore. You're building up that safety net. So when you fall, you're only going to fall back a little
Mhm.
bit because you've been
Mhm.
doing all of this work. So when you go to the pub and order something, whatever, that overwhelming feeling of I'm messing up, it's not there anymore. You're just going to be like, I didn't really like that. That tasted like shit. And all of a sudden, now what you really did is you just exposed yourself to something that you never would have done, and it didn't cripple you anymore. So
And
I
it's
love
uncomfortable. Yeah. If
being
do
comfortable being
something
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Hmm.
And being then comfortable. And then your body learn new comfort,
Yep.
right? Because the
Yep.
baseline a bit adjusted already. That's my new comfort. This is how we work with fears. Do uncomfortable. Right now,
Yeah.
it was uncomfortable talking at the beginning. It was like, oh, a bit like, I don't know what it is, excitement, or maybe I'm worried. What if I say something stupid? What, I'm not smart at all, like compared to Ben, I know nothing. Like there will
That's
be
so
all this,
funny, by the way.
but I
You're
just
a
want to make a
doctor.
point that inner critic is there. He is always like somewhere lurking. He's just choosing the right correct time to jump and overwhelm. It's like, am I going to be like, what about my accent? Like, remember, I'm still kind of a learner, of
Mhm.
English. Like, what if people will never understand my accent? What if they will judge my accent? What if they're, what if can carry on and on and on if we dwell on that kind of line
Fuck it.
of thought. But you need to do that. You need to completely distract you, fuck it, and say, I'm going to be sitting here feeling comfortable, sweating my balls, but I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And that's going to be my new normal and comfortable uncomfort. And then it's going to be comfortable, just comfortable. And then you
Yep.
jump another level, and you're going to sweat again your balls. You're going to be drinking chamomile tea. and and that is going to be new comfort, and this is how you climb the ladder, because that's
Those
this
bricks.
spiral. Yeah,
Exactly.
there it brings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I've started to learn that like where fear and uncomfort lives is usually the direction I need to go. Where because I'm like, because everything I like, we talk about there's no destination, right? I want to be a successful coach. I want to do public speaking. I have these goals, right? I want to be able to help
Mhm.
people at a large scale. But the journey is where everything is. And to get to those goals, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. So by knowing that, it's kind of like, well, follow discomfort, because that is, it's going to be uncomfortable to do these things you haven't done yet. So if you follow that discomfort, it's going to take you in the direction that you're looking to go. And then those layers of bricks are getting laid, because now you're chasing discomfort. It's almost like you're not scared of it anymore. You're looking for it.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about why we want comfort more than discomfort from the evolutionary point of view. And I
Absolutely.
like that, because then we maybe see perspective of why we're behaving in a like I'm not going to do today's podcast. I'm just going to tell him that something come up, right? And that was very easy not to put myself out there. Why would I do that? Because evolutionary. We were created quite minimalistic. We were created for reproduction, to build this human race, right? And this is how animal world was created. You just need to reproduce and to survive and carry on your genes, right? And only the fittest would, win at the end. So the idea was to survive a day. So you are not encounter any animals, and if you do, and if you're strong, you're gonna fight the animal. You're gonna survive that day, and this is how we survive it. You just need to survive a day, and also preservation of energy. Because if you spend a lot of energy, you might not have energy to fight that lion. You just
Mhm.
need to preserve, and this is evolutionary. We're wired to go to place of least resistance. We just like to just curl in the ball in our bed, not because we're lazy, not because we're procrastinating. It's because this is how we survive in a moment. And I love talk about procrastination because like, oh, it's still people think it's laziness, but no, it's actually survival mode that you're right now. So that's like one of the point, go to uncomfort, because
Oh my god.
this is where you step up from
You
the
think
minimalistic evolutionary point of view.
I love that you brought procrastination into it because it makes sense. If you're like waste, I say wasting energy, but if you're using energy for a
Mhm.
task now when something else is more important,
Yeah.
you're not full, like we say, like surviving the lions in the Serengeti, we'll talk about, but you're preparing for a hike 3 days from now or a trek 3 days from now. You're not fully aware and present in the moment of what's happening. Where I've always, because I was called a procrastinator in school my whole life because it would be the night before. That's when I'm doing anything. And my mom would have to go run out and get glue, scissors, and cardboard cutting paper at like 9 o'clock. And she'd be like, you need to better prepare. That I could understand. But it was very true. What I was doing was I was just using my energy at the time it needed to be used. I was doing other things and I was either relaxing or whatever it may be. Procrastination wasn't me being lazy. It was me choosing when to use my energy. And that was, you told me it was due at this time, or the lions are coming at this time.
Mhm.
That's when I'm going to use my energy for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love them. Once again, you're making a lot of things make sense here, Irina.
Okay, good. I'm glad that was helpful. Yeah, I love that. And because we touch upon inner critic, and actually that was, I think, why we initially decided to get together. And I love the idea of inner critic. And I want to just put it out there. I have it. I have it every single day since the morning I like open my eyes, and I exercise at 6 o'clock in the morning because I don't have time during the day. And my inner critic is like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? 6 o'clock? Are you actually joking me? It's like, or it's Scottish winter, which is really, really windy, really, really miserable, really wet, and we don't have heating on during the night. So 6 o'clock in the morning is proper freezing, like proper. I was like, what are you doing? Go back to bed. Like you can actually sleep another 2 hours before your crazy day will start. But no, I choose not to listen to that. And I think that is really the way out. You said that, oh, you thought all this thing. I actually did. I actually thought that, shall I go to that podcast or not? Oh my God, what if I say something? And inner critic is always, always there because that is a preservation. What if you say something stupid and people will think you're stupid? Why would you put yourself out there? Are you crazy?
Hmm.
So no, and people who are listening and people who are suffering from inner critic and thinking like, oh, all these mental health professional, all these smart people, they don't have it. We do every single time, every single moment, from the moment I open my eyes to the moment I shut my eyes. And when I'm shutting my eyes, it's still there. You shouldn't be shutting your eyes. should be going to work. You can work another half an hour. You're lazy, and da da
Yeah.
da da da.
Mhm.
And it just going on and on and on. But their toxic way is to listen to that and do how it is telling you. And this is the problem. But you choose not to listen to that. And that's where, you can go such a long way.
I think that the inner critic is something that helped me with that is before I do things, like before I jump on a podcast or before I jump on a coaching call with a client or something, I take like my 5 to 10 minutes and like I'll set that space and I'll set my intentions for it. So like I'll be
Mhm.
I'll just give you an example for this podcast. I was like, I want to set a safe space for us to communicate about healing, being vulnerable, sharing our stories. I want Irina to feel comfortable. I want her to feel like safe, like all those things. And then once I let my mind and my subconscious mind know what my intentions are, the inner
Mhm.
critic kind of goes away because my subconscious mind is like, oh, this is the world you want to create. And the
Mhm.
ego, the inner critic over there is like, but wait. And the subconscious mind is kind of like, shut up. We
Don't
we
have
we
time.
know what
I don't have
yeah,
time for you.
we know what we're doing. Like he said this is what we want that. So like for this time, like when and then
Mhm.
once the podcast starts, there's always going to be those nerves, right? We never spoke
Mhm.
in person.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
texted each or we were DMing each other. And then but I know since those intentions were set for me, that bubble is kind of around me. And I'm like, well, that's what this space is for. And how I
Mhm.
navigate that is going to be that right side of the brain is that's the creative side.
Mhm.
Like what we're going to talk about, what our connections are going to be, how vulnerable can I be to make her feel comfortable. All of a sudden, that those intentions just come to fruition. They come to life because I was intentional with the space I wanted to create. And like I can relate to that. Because I'll start working out around like 7:30 and I'll be like, I don't want to do it. But what's my intention? Well, I have to do this for my mental health. Like set the intent and all
Mhm.
of those things. So I'm really happy you brought up inner critic because as a coach before every call, right? Am I going to be the best coach I can be for this person?
Mhm.
Are they going to feel like I'm the right person to talk to? Am I
Mhm.
going to be and all of a sudden you sit there and you just have like that F it, right? Sometimes you just gotta be like, shut up. We're good. We're good at what we do because we've gone through some things that help us be good at what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I like that you are having a relationship with a critic because usually we're trying to so people either get really enmeshed with it that I am that inner critic, I am saying all this word, therefore they're true.
Hmm.
But having a relationship like with a friend who is annoying and you know
Yep.
I I don't mind you hanging out with you. You kind of actually sometimes do help me. You actually do keep me like motivated. You propel me to something, keep me maybe safe sometimes. I actually quite like having you around, but you can be like really annoying, and I don't want you on Saturday. I want you like from Monday to Thursday. That's your day, and still quite selective that but not on Saturday you go and play with someone else. I like that relationship that that's a part of me. It's like we're having a tummy ache. I have a stomach ache. I'm not saying like I am a stomach ache. I never say I am a stomach ache. I have a stomach ache. I have an inner critic. I am not an inner critic. I have a relationship with you. Okay, don't want you right now. Thank you very much. I listen, I acknowledge you, but goodbye.
And the choice of words, I when I changed the way I talk to myself, I changed my entire life. It's
Hmm.
because I got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, panic
Hmm.
disorder, and depression. Once I got those diagnoses, I thought I became those things. So I am
Hmm.
anxious, I am depressed, I am panic disorder. And all of a sudden I was like, no, I feel anxiety. Some days I feel depressed, and some days I experience a panic attack. I am not these things. Like you said, I am not a stomach ache. I feel
Hmm.
upset stomach. And
Yeah.
so once, because then I started that, like, you start to separate yourself from the I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
And and then like I love that you said it's like the roommate or the best friend or something. You look at it, you're like,
Uh-huh.
no, I understand we're not going anywhere. that's why there's this world of like in the spiritual world, right? People talk about like an ego death. Like I've rid myself of my ego, it no longer exists. And my big thing is always saying like I think it's a healthy way to like you should create a relationship with your ego
Yeah, absolutely
because
right.
it's designed to protect you.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
in today's society, what's happening is we give the ego more power than it's built to have. And all of a sudden it thinks it's running the show. And we have to remind it like, no, 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 like you're just here to like pop in from time to time and let us know either we're in safe, we're in danger, we need a boost or whatever. But like, you're not the captain of this ship. Like I am.
Mhm.
Like you're the co-captain. You're just helping me out.
Absolutely. I don't like when people trying to refuse the part of you. Like, I refuse to have an ego. I refuse to have bad parts. I refuse to accept that I am a bad person. But that is not a complete story. It's like yin and yang, you have to be dark and light. You absolutely have to have this wholeness, but you just need to have good relationship with that. You just need to accept it fully and say it is like everything that is come to you or from your mind that is accepted as a truth, or also not denied completely. I don't want to be that bad person because we're all capable of that bad, but we're just not letting ourselves. We have relationship to that, and I absolutely agree that it keeps us safe. But you have relationship, it's like with an annoying friend. You don't want to kick him out. He's actually quite fun, like. But you wouldn't say, wouldn't like sit with it and listen to everything that they say, and it's like, no,
Mhm.
no.
I, a great way to look at it for me is kind of like if it's me and my ego, I say we both occupy this body, but
Yeah.
I get 51% of the votes. Like
Oh yeah,
like
that's
when
good.
it comes
Yeah,
to push and shove,
exactly.
like I'm 51% like ownership of this, like you're 49. And that's why like it's just kind of like the ego know like it is still really important. And like I want to have a working relationship and a friendship and like an understanding, but we don't always have to be on the same page. And that's
Mhm.
okay because I want to listen to you. But if I feel like it's kind of not in alignment with like the whole like being scared, that inner critic of like moving in this direction, it wants to tell you, oh, no, 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 you can't do that. You're not good enough for that. And then I'll
Mhm.
listen to it and be like, why are you saying this to me? And
Yeah,
then you can
I get it.
understand maybe
I
that
love
younger version of you, the
it.
maybe the version of you that went through trauma, it's letting you, it's trying to protect you from those things. And like, you're just trying to protect me from what we have felt before. I can understand you're scared of that. That's okay. But why don't you come with me and we're going to try this together? I need you to help me through this because you're going to protect me from other things as well. But like, I promise you, we got this together. And I think like, I love that you just kind of like when you just said like the friendship, because that's kind of how I look at it is I
Yeah.
need you with me. I don't want you gone. Like I need your help.
Mhm.
You're a good teammate, but I'm the captain of the ship.
I love that. I love that we're on the same page and we're using the same language. I love that. Yeah. Because, get rid of anxiety. No, anxiety keeps you safe. Anxiety kept you safe somehow. Depression, yes, shut down. I'm not saying that is great. It's not a greatest feeling in the world. That's awful feeling in the world, but it keeps you safe. You survived something, in that shutdown response, right? So understand that and have relationship with that. That is the most important thing. Be open to that, open to curiosity. And neuroscience of curiosity is amazing. People were doing study on curiosity, and it's a very much process that soothes the amygdala, this reactive brain, and make the prefrontal cortex back online. Because when we're anxious, we're not. But when we're curious, it's like, oh, I'm listening. Oh, I'm really interested in what is happening with my body, what is happening with my mind, what is happening around me. Being open and really not just passing through life without thinking, without noticing. That is the problem. But when we slow down, this is where we're noticing. This is when we're curious. This is why we're picking up things. And some high achiever anxiety, like this people who are constantly on a move. They can't stop going and going and going. They are just not noticing things. They are passing through things. And this is where anxiety starts. And I feel like in slowing down, this is where miracles happening, where we can see more things, we can go through here, like, like blinkers to like, oh, that's this world, like this, all this is opening up, all these opportunities, not like only this very, very narrow blinkered view in
Hmm.
noticing and slowing down.
Yeah, no, and it's when you talk about anxiety and the amygdala and stuff like that, like it's designed to help us survive.
Mhm.
The problem
Mhm.
I've found, especially in like the research and stuff I've done, is it's when that mind or the brain and the body aren't on the same page. The brain is telling us
Yeah.
that we're safe, and what the body is actually telling us by the raised levels of cortisol is that we are not safe. And so
Mhm.
when the brain's like, hey, you're sitting in your office, or you're sitting on the couch, you're okay. You're not fighting lions. But the body is like, we're in fight mode, we're in flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. Like, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden the anxiety and the panic start to happen because there's such a disconnect. They're operating on
Yeah.
completely different wavelengths. And then that's just the amygdala doing its job. We can't
Yeah.
rationalize with the amygdala. The amygdala is
Yeah.
just literally a receptor saying the body feels this way. So, okay,
Mhm.
now we're here. And the brain, like you said, the prefrontal cortex is just kind of like, whoa, 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 we are good. And the body's like, we are not. And then, but it's bringing us to alert, right? And for anyone listening that like works through panic disorder or anxiety disorder, like understand that's what anxiety and panic are, is just raised levels of
Mhm.
cortisol, then an unwanted rush of adrenaline. And then so you're having a really unwanted rush of adrenaline. And I mean, I'm sure you can speak to it as well. Like the body only can produce so much adrenaline at one time. It has to
Mhm.
run out. It has
Yeah,
to
it actually
subside.
runs out in 3 minutes.
Wow.
Researchers were testing how long it lasts. Actually, lasts only 3 minutes. So we actually target. You just need to wait for 3 minutes, and it's all gonna go away. But when we go on our overload mode, then we can extend that. But if we sit with it, if we ride the wave, it's only lasts 3 minutes.
That's and I'm sure like the after effects of that raised cortisol will help, but the anxiety and the adrenaline rush
Mhm.
only lasts 3 minutes. That's incredible. I
Yeah,
want to answer a question that someone actually just asked us as well.
right.
Tara, do you find if a situation gives you anxiety, you should leave the situation, or should you try to swallow it and like work through, or and just kind of like bury it under the rug?
Definitely not the latter. When an anxious situation happens, it depends on again on the situation. You sometimes need to act on it. Maybe that's a real thing that you need to tackle on that moment. So, for example, if there is a deadline, you need to tackle the deadline. It's always depends on, or if it's a real situation, a real objective problem you need to solve, and you're anxious of not meeting the deadline, and your boss will kick your ass, and there is a real consequences. I would say anxiety will propel you to do that. If there is nothing else, you're waking up and there is anxiety. There's nothing. You're just already waking up. Then I would suggest that there are so many things that you can do in the morning, right? There's tuning in with the body, tuning in with the breath, go bottom up process, understanding what is happening, right? Um, I love Mel Robbins' idea of counting backwards: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up and do things. For example, do a little bit of stretching, do a little bit of yoga, whatever, move your body, connect to your breathing again. And if that anxiety more like in a brain area, like lots and lots of thoughts, just try to separate the thoughts, have like a thought log, like what kind of like thinking I'm, and put them in like mental logs, what like priority, maybe name them, maybe write them down, put them on a list, like unload yourself. There are so many different things, but it just depends on the context.
Yeah, and I think I misunderstood the question when she said swallow it. I definitely don't think she meant put it under a rug. I think she kind of meant like work through it. And my my experience with like anxiety and stuff like that is the exposure therapy of it has been what has helped me. As discomforting as it is to do the things that are causing you anxiety at that moment. I know a lot of people will just say like, "Hey, put your face in ice water or take a cold shower and all these things." And in the moment, okay. But what I have found for long-term success is you want to train the mind and the brain to know you are safe in the moments that you don't feel safe. So if I'll just use this as an example. If you're going into if you have social anxiety and large crowds give you the raised level of cortisol and adrenaline, what we're going to do now can either be gradual or you can jump right in. This is studies show that both are equally as effective. It's just what works better for you. What you'll do is you'll go to the mall, you'll go to the record store or wherever it may be, and you're going to actively cause yourself anxiety. You're saying, I'm going to take this from a 1 to a 2 to a level 8, 9, or a 10. And you say, I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes and I'm going to survive. And then after those 10 minutes are up, you're out and you go, okay. And what you're doing is you're training the mind to let you know, oh, this is just a feeling. I'm safe. It's just my body feels like it's not. And like I said, working with like professionals and stuff with exposure therapy, like I could go on for hours about it. But it's those things when like deal with anxiety head on. I find long-term success is it's going to desensitize you to those anxious feelings. And instead of it feeling like a wide open wound, it's going to feel like something just kind of poking you next time, or not next time, but once you kind of are able to work through that.
I feel that strategy is amazing for some, but it probably will scare other people. But I feel like exposure therapy is amazing too, because you will actively show you're not going to die, because basically what you're afraid, you're going to die and there will be
Hmm.
nobody to help. And this is why I feel clinical hypnotherapy really amazing at exposure therapy, because
Yeah.
you're in a safe space. You can always withdraw yourself in a calm space, and you actually can go through all the anxious experience. First of all, you can identify where you had that anxiety, why you have that anxiety, why it was given, when it was boring. You can identify the root cause. And then you can gradually expose yourself in your mind, going to there. If you
Hmm.
are afraid of going to the big roads, going to the mall, going outside your house, speaking to people, you can be in hypnotic state and do all that, and make yourself feel how you want to feel, like, because you can do anything in your mind. It's very creative. And then out of hypnosis, go and do it. Like
Hmm.
if you're afraid of flying on an airplane, do it in hypnosis, find a hypnotherapist, do that, and go and fly a real plane, like on a real airplane. So I think exposure therapy in hypnotic states is a fantastic way. If what you've been proposing is a bit too much, because it,
Hmm.
it needs to be also gradual experience, isn't it? Because, like
Yep.
telling a person with agoraphobia, going out there, it probably sometimes quite risky, but gradual exposure is the best. Exposure therapy is the best, yeah, for
Yeah.
treating the fear. Yeah.
And so I was agoraphobic for about a year. And that was I read a book. It's called Untangling Anxiety or Untangle Your Anxiety.
Mhm,
Um and they just kind of demystified it all for me. It just kind of started to make
mhm,
sense. And that's what they were talking about. Like studies show, like choose what like gradual, like if you're going, we'll say like going to the mall, like maybe all you can do today is get outside and walking to the car. That's all you have
mhm.
to do today.
Yeah.
And then once you get comfortable doing that, maybe someone else drives you around the
Mhm,
block and you're able to come right
yeah.
back. But what you're talking about, so I love gradual, I love diving in. My personal strategy was dive in because I was so sick of being agoraphobic. I'm like,
And
if I can't,
motivated, yeah.
I was like, if
Uh-huh.
I can't die, I'm just gonna go do this. I'm going to dinner. Let's go. Um, and then, but I love that you're talking about clinical hypnotherapy, and because we talked about in the beginning of the podcast, if you're able to evoke emotion through in the state of your subconscious, the mind and body don't know the difference between
Mhm.
real and imaginary.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
just creating the situation.
Yeah.
That's a really cool tool to have in your pocket, to offer people and to help people with. That's really, really cool. Really
Yeah.
cool. Wonderful question, and I'm really appreciative of your answer, because that is something I always know. Like in my sessions, if like obviously I can't provide a certain service, whether it be like requiring of therapy or anything, I always like referring people to like clinical hypnotherapists that I'm close with, and
Mhm.
I will start suggesting, if that is something you obviously do, that's something I will
Oh,
definitely help people working through. I definitely send them
yeah.
your way if I can.
Yeah, because people are always in my Instagram, I always trying to demystify hypnotherapy, because thanks to hypnosis, we all think that we're not going to be in control or anything, and that's such a big myth. And everybody under hypnosis, they can take themselves out of hypnosis, and there's no problem. They can hear what I'm saying. They can absolutely act on anything, but people just not comfortable, because there are so many movies about how a hypnosis, what it can do, and using it in a really wrong way. And I'm such an advocate right now for clinical hypnosis, because such a nice. I'm also doing EMDR type of
Mm,
therapy, but through hypnosis, called integral eye movement therapy, that was created for hypnosis, and it's just fantastic alternative for EMDR, because EMDR can be really, really heavy for some people, but in hypnosis, it's so much lighter, so much softer, so much more pleasant, and less traumatic. Re-traumatization
mhm.
um, uh, never happened. Well, in on with me, it never happened. But I hear stories with AMDR. It needs to be a big preparation before
Yeah.
AMDR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and something that actually helped me, when I first was like diagnosed with, like I said, my disorders there, my laundry list that felt like it was growing day by day. I wanted to find. I reached out to a therapist that actually did somatic experiencing, and I found
Mhm.
SE work to be something that really connected well with me, because I
Mhm.
feel like I'm in tune with like energy, and like like you
Yeah.
talk about like being in alignment and being all those things. I've My intuition's pretty good, so I was like, okay, well, I want to learn how to direct and almost play with that energy and understand it better. And
Mhm.
she really, really helped me feel like obviously where the energy is located in my body, that I can move
Mhm.
it, I can understand it, I can feel it, I can
Mhm.
listen to it. Um, and so like anybody listening, understand like with clinical hypnotherapy, you said EMDR, somatic, there's so much more out there that besides just traditional like talk therapy
Talking
or
to- Mhm.
CBT or anything like that.
Mhm.
And I think, research is really backing it up, that all of these things are so beneficial where for different people. This is how I look at it. If healing is a tree, we're all just kind of different branches on a tree, on that healing tree, where some people might be better fit for talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mhm.
Some people might be ready to some people just might want to explore hypnotherapy. I know me, I was just fortunate enough, somebody offered like, hey, I'll do a mental health coaching session with you if you want some of this, and I went back to them multiple times. I'm like, this is awesome. And I
Mhm.
like all of a sudden now it became a healing became a fun adventure opposed to this to-do list. So I think like when we were talking about EMDR, hypnotherapy, somatic experiencing, exposure therapy, like I know it always doesn't feel fun, but healing can be a little bit of an adventure. And the more fun you have and the more exploratory you get, we talk about you're not going to mess up. You're just going to find things that are right for you right now or not right for you right now. So I want to like encourage people to like either reach out to either myself or Irina and ask questions about what you think might be recommendations, because I think that's really important. I'm really, as always, grateful that you're kind of opening and peeling back the layers of showing people that there's other stuff out there than just kind of what's on the surface level.
Mhm. Yeah, there are so many fantastic way of healing, and as you said, talking therapy. For me, talking therapy didn't work. It never worked.
Same.
I felt like I am reliving this horrible way of, human being can behave to other human being. I don't want to talk about that. I absolutely don't want to talk about that. And I tried several different talking therapies, Gestalt, connected a bit more than just psychodynamic and person-centered therapy, even though they are all beautiful modalities for some people, but I just wouldn't connect. And this is why I prefer something more experiential and goal
Mhm.
oriented, even though I do welcome, exploration of who you are, because some people just don't know who they are. I absolutely love that. And experience through body, I love that. Somatosensory psychotherapy, I love this modality. I love to work with hypnotherapy, but through different modalities and through parts therapy, because we're all parts. We already talk about, like this in the critic part, there is like maybe in a negotiator, in a like smarty pants or something like this. There's so many parts, and when they are in a fight mode, we always can make a little bit of reconciliation in between these three parts and talk about like, hey, come on guys, talk to me. And again, I can talk, can do it in hypnotherapy or in conscious. It just depends on the person. And I like that we have all that right now, because you can pick and choose. What are you right now capable of doing, and most maybe fun for you to do in the moment?
Fun. That is a
Uh-huh.
word that is I utilize and use in my coaching quite a bit. It's we have to learn how to have fun in this because when do you learn the most? Not when you feel like you have to study, you have to do this. It's when you enjoy the things you're doing. So, like with each client, it's always going to be different. You find out like kind of where they are in their journey and kind of what their joy is and what brings them happiness and kind of what they're working through. But that's what I always say, like find things that you're going to enjoy doing, and then we're just going to start doubling down on those things. So like if you do enjoy meditating, are you making enough time to meditate? Or sorry, every time I sit down to meditate I can't stop the thoughts, this and that. And then instead of trying to tell them and be like you have to meditate, it's like, do you enjoy walking in nature? Because that's meditative. You could just be wherever you are. And obviously getting out in nature, bare feet, go ground yourself, all of these things, all these tools we can work with our clients with. And I just love that, like the use of fun and healing. We've used the word fun, healing, and trauma all in the same podcast. And like people would be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, I
Yeah.
think because we've gone through some things, and
Yeah.
like yourself, especially like talking about like there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and
Mhm.
you have this smile to your face that may not have existed years ago when you were going through
Oh
all this,
no,
right?
yeah, absolutely
and
not.
and now there's just this giant like light surrounding you of like now you're using all of those experiences to help others, to guide others, and to create space for other people who are uncomfortable on their healing journey right now. And I just love that like you are just a wonderful example of somebody who can go from a, we'll call it a shit feeling situation, to we talked about like where your son's at, you're going through, you created life and created a wonderful growing and learning and healing environment for yourself and him, and now doing that with like all of your clients.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just, the more I talk to you, the more I'm just like getting blown away by like your story and what you do. So that's my spiel, and I'm done gushing about like your 18 years of your journey here. That's amazing.
Oh, great. That was such a fantastic talk. I had so much fun talking about healing. I think, yeah, you can have quite amazing experience discovering who you are, because when we're going through traumatic experience, whatever trauma is for you, you know, it's just such an amazing, it's such a revelation and such a lightness to actually say, that's me. I came to myself. You can tell me whatever you want. I'm just so free of all that outer criticism. I have enough of my shit going on, like my own inner critic. I just don't care what you're like. I don't care about what you're saying, and that's my path. This is how I do things, and people sometimes have comments about my style of therapy because it's not very conventional. And I love that. I love that they don't like it. I love that they're different from me because I'm do me, you do you. And I'm so happy that we are so different because I would hate you do me. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to do you, and this self discovery is very empowering. I wish everybody in the world was going through the therapy. And if you have problems, so don't just discover more of you, who you are. That
Don't
is the
try to be
goal.
someone else. Yeah, don't,
Yeah.
because what you're talking, like, I don't want someone out there, if you're aspiring to be whether a mental health coach, a clinical hypnotherapist, don't try to be me, because I worked
Mhm.
a long time trying to be other people, and I found out I'd much rather be the best version of me than a poor version of them. And then
Yeah.
I've you know what and I don't know if this relates to you as we're closing up here. I don't want to keep you too long, but I've noticed once I finally became comfortable with who I am, how I help people and my
Mhm.
style, it's not work. And I said this like the other day, I'm like,
Yeah.
I finally feel I'm really good at what I do. I finally feel
Yes,
that confidence in myself of
I
like,
agree.
and I've searched a lifetime for those words to come out of my mouth and being like, "I'm really good at what I do," and believe it. Like, I know I may have said it before just to be like a guy, like, beating his chest, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm good at sports, this and that," but for the first time in, maybe ever, I can confidently and feel like I'm so happy and I'm so proud, and I feel like I'm so good at what I do, and I see that in you. Like, I see, like, I don't want people to be me. Like, I want my space to be my space. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Irina,
Awesome.
I want to give you a minute here. So if you have anything going on, because I know you had like saw you were doing some circles and some master classes on
Yeah.
Instagram. If you want to take a minute or two, or however long you want, to kind of tell people what you got going on, where they can find you, and I don't know, whatever you got.
Yeah. So you can find me on my Instagram is mental health underscore coach, but there will be probably in your notes for this episode. And also on my website is irinacampbelltherapy.com. I also do an amazing things that calls the circles. It's an app that it's 7-day trial for free that you can check, but it's a space where there are tons of masterclasses, tons of support, where you can just go and speak about what you're going to go through, what are you going through, and have support from professional facilitators. There are different masterclasses. My masterclass is every Friday at 9 o'clock, and you can come. It's like a mini therapy session. I'm talking a little bit about worth and how to discover that inner worth. And there are people who are just sharing their stories. There's also incredible chat about various problems, and you can find support for yourself from other peers or from professional facilitators. So it's a beautiful, beautiful space uh, that is 24/7 mental health support in your pocket. It's a beautiful app. It's very intuitive, and there are tons of free information. And I think the price is really liberal. It's just such an affordable price for what they're offering, and it's incredible space to hang out with like-minded people and have support.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And now that I finally found the person who took the Instagram name mental health underscore coach, I tried getting that one and I was like, I think that's actually how I got to your page, was because I
All
went to
right.
make that name and I was like, who took that name? And so awesome. But thank you. Hang out for a minute. Once this ends, we'll kind of go right back into that lobby and we can kind of just debrief and say, and just kind of recap a little bit. But I wanted to thank everyone who tuned in to the live broadcast, everyone who is going to be either watching the replay or listening to the replay on Spotify or wherever, iTunes, wherever you find your podcast. I specifically want to take this moment to say a huge thank you to Dr. Irina Campbell. You have been amazing. And you weren't lying. We could talk about this forever. So just thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking the time to speak with us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Ben. It was just such an amazing journey. Thank you so much for making it so easy and
Oh
fun.
my gosh, it's my pleasure. So everybody who's tuned in, thank you. I will catch you on the next episode. We'll be live Thursday, July 27th, and I will catch you when I catch you. Talk to y'all later.